Give it a few more seconds and then we'll start.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third workshop we have in the series of Leadership Up Level. Today, again, we're going to have two speakers. The first one is Cleber. He is going to talk about the risk management in leadership for projects. Cleber has been a project risk manager for more than 15 years, creating and developing risk management projects, concepts, and solutions in companies such as ACE Insurance, JLT Group, and Samsung Electronics in Brazil. And then after the first session, we'll have a Q&A session, and then we'll have the second speaker, Ferlicius. She's going to talk about the heart of communication in project management. Ferlicius is the founder of Create Value and author, event producer, and director, speaker, project pitcher, and corporate trainer. So I will be the meeting coordinator with PMI LA Development Lab. So we'll at the end populate the PDU code for you to self-report. And without further ado, take away, Ferlicius.
Actually, the stage will be handed to Cleber.
Hi there. Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Ferlicius, for inviting me for this panel today. I've worked for PMI LA for almost 2 years, and we were teammates, I guess, two or 3 years ago. And it's always a pleasure to come back and contribute in something with my small experience with my colleagues, project managers. So I was invited to talk about risk management in leadership today. So there are few techniques and some skills that we can apply. I always say that risk management we can use everywhere. We can use to our personal lives. We can use for our friendships and to manage even our marriage and everything. You always have risk, and risks can be positive or negative. So let's the point is to decrease the probability of negative risks and increase probabilities of positive risk. And managing people in projects, I believe it's one of the most difficult things. It's always hard because you have different personalities, people with different objectives, and sometimes you have to manage teams and that are not dedicated to the project, and you have to engage them. So it's interesting. I remember like 15 years ago when I started working for an insurance company in Brazil. I started as a trainee in the risk management area for cargo transportation. It was inside the marine cargo department, and I had my direct boss was a senior analyst, but we had a supervisor for the whole department. And I guess I was like in my first month there, and he told me, Cleber, the most important thing of supervising a department is managing people. You can have a lot of technical skills. You can be the best expert in the field and know everything about the area, the market. If you're not a capable and skilled leader, everything can ruin. So I kept that in mind, and since I started leading my projects, I always remember that I try to apply most of my attention to the staff. So that's how I want to share with you here some experience. So I will pass through some concepts, some tools that I've used it in my career, and two business case. We will make a small exercise just to interact with our audience. So after the explanation, I'll be more than happy to answer questions and discuss debate some topics. Let me share my screen so we can start. Just a second. Okay, can you see my screen? I hope so. So that's my company here. It's a consulting company for risk management that we opened 3 years ago with a partner from Brazil. That is the joint of Project Inovação and Brasileira, and we made a partnership with a company, IT company from Ukraine, and we offer like technical and IT solutions for risk prevention. We're the two co-founders, me and my partner. But what is our expertise that I want to share with you? Like we have data and information everywhere. Nowadays, easy. You just Google, make a Yahoo search. You can find all kinds of information. But is that knowledge? No, not exactly. You need to access. You need to analyze that. So you collect data, but you need to transform that into knowledge. And when you have knowledge, you need to apply them to the organization or to the project. So we try to inspire companies to lead change and improvements for enterprise risk management. That's for business. If you have two options in general. You can your company when you're in a PMO, you might have to change something. You'll be hired to change something, or even if you are hired by an organization, your project to improve, to make something different, to bring different results, or to create something new, or just another project like construction. You don't need to change anything. You start from zero. But if you are hired to change, to make something different, you deal with people in resistance. So how do you inspire people to make those things? I believe you had Keith Bird last month talking about change management. So you can combine risk management and change management into leadership to make those changes. So the point is turning risk threats into opportunities, the famous SWOT analysis. So what? Oops, here. So remember what I said about the data collection. You have data, you have the knowledge. So you need to have analytical skills and knowledge, someone with leadership that make it happen to start a new project or to make a change. That's the real power of leadership, of make things happening. Because you have the skills, you know how to do it, and you know how to influence people to do it here, because alone you don't do anything. So that's the outcome we want to reach here. So our session now is risk management and leadership for project. As I said, like you can prevent failure by a good analysis of your team and the stakeholders. So that's what I want to explore more. So let's discuss the main risk of leading project teams that can affect the delivery of the objectives, tools and techniques, risks and opportunities, and some case studies. The three takeaways is risk identification and leadership, and his opportunity to stimulate best ideas from the project team, and techniques to mitigate avoid risks of lack of engagement from stakeholders and the project team. That's the main threat for me. And with the two business case, I will discuss that in more details. So to start, let's make an exercise. Grab a piece of paper and make a sentence. You can make along my presentation. Make a sentence that reflects the meaning of the word event, like occurrence, problem in leadership. Then make a sentence that reflects impact on leadership, and a sentence that reflects probability on leadership. At the end, combine all the three ideas above with the sentence you wrote and make a sentence that describes risk. But don't tell me now. At the end of the lecture, you can read your sentence, just the last one, the fourth. So you will have time along my presentation to make that, okay? So let's start with the concept. Main risks. What are the main risks for the project team and the stakeholders? First, lack of motivation. It's it's a challenging period. I will discuss more of that. But we have a lot of change recently due to the pandemic, and keep motivation and engagement is essential. And in consequence, poor communication. We had to make social distance. We have to stay apart from our teams, from our colleagues, and communication is the key part in the leadership. You have to send the message from the sender must be the same that the receiver will understand, and that's a thing that affected many projects that I've worked with. So I had to pay a lot of attention of that. Lack of knowledge on the field. So to pick the right people, to know that they are an expert, you can use the expert interviews to assess that. But we're gonna discuss that later. And internal disputes, you can have a lot of stress and tensions with that. Some resource that we have, the stakeholders registers that for me, if we are talking about risk management in leadership, the stakeholders register is the most important document. It's where you can access all the map from the team that are involved, from all people involved in the project, from the sponsors, from the teammates, from people that can contribute, people that can influence negatively in the project to reach the project objective. The project chart, the risk breakdown structure, the work breakdown structure, and the risk management plan. Of course, you can have softwares and programs nowadays that it helps a lot and facilitates your day-by-day work. Uh, I personally use the MS Project Pro uh, that are for risk management talking about. If for leadership, you have a lot of like you can use Zoho, you can use Zana, you have Monday, you have a lot of softwares, but they don't provide many tools for risk assessment. So I prefer the project and pro from MS Project. So I guess in the sessions about leadership, you've heard a lot about theories of motivation, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the psychological safety, social esteem, self-actualization. So performance is motivation, plausibility versus environment, hygiene factors, motivators. I'm just like popping up them to make you remind that they are very important. I won't discuss in detail focus on that. Negotiation technique, understanding conflict. So be able to explain the nature of conflict in your personal life or at work. Like people bring the personal conflicts, the problems from their in their personal life to work. You're a human being there also. So it will be a part of that. So you need to be able to handle that. You can have interpersonal conflict that is the conflict bring for one person in particular. Uh, Interpersonal conflict, the conflicts among the teammates, the project team, and intergroup conflict. You have conflicts between departments and different areas in the organization or in the project. So during negotiations, it will be wise not to take anything personally. If you leave personalities out of it, you will be able to see opportunities more objectively. So Brian Cuzziol said that. And but one important thing, moderate conflict can be healthy and necessary for the organizational life. Because if you see in the chart here, low conflict also can mean that you don't have interactions because you have different experts, you have different personalities, and if you have zero conflict, it can mean you don't have engagement. So you need some debate, some different opinions, some different point of views. This can enhance your project and make you understand more on the focus on the objectives and or solving a problem, not mitigating. Because different views, sometimes you have a point of thinking, but you're not seeing a particular reason or root cause that somebody else can do that. And sometimes you convince you have a small conflict, a different a debate of different ideas. So that's important to have moderate conflict. Managing stress, it's always complicated. It just from period to period, the type of stress, the main cause of stress, it changed, but you always have will always have stress. So understand the stress cycle, the source of stress for employees, if the culture of the organization, the resource, the financial resource you have, the the awards, recognition, salaries, tools, and work resource that you offer for the team. This all cause of stress, and you can have high focus or low focus on your team depending on the stress of them. So I've just read an article regarding the new stress from the brought by the home office because of the social distance brought by the pandemic. That's the new normal. And even when we overcome this period of the pandemic, many companies realize that they can reduce a lot of costs with home office and only bring people together in the office for important meetings or important discussions. And it will increase a lot. It will be permanent the level, the quantity of remote work that you have in teams. So the point is, human beings need personal interaction and sometimes being in person with other people. That's a problem that you always working a lot. We put on ourselves the need of being overloaded because you feel more important, and people there are professionals that are always tired and stressed, and they say that you probably have heard about the syndrome of burnout. It's even higher now with the home office. On the other hand, of what we thought about being at home with my pets, with my kids, with my wife, my husband would contribute, but in a way, it's causing some different problems. So it's something that we need to consider for the new normal. Communication. That there's an analysis. Uh, the message that you send, the impact of that message, only 7% it's work. The vocal tone responds for almost 40%, but your facial expressions respond for more than a half of the effectiveness. So, how to make the message understanding in the digital environment? You write a lot in messenger apps like WhatsApp, iMessage, Signal. You have chat, you have emails, you have interactions on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Twitter. Are you expressing yourself or to the team in a way that they are really understand what you're trying to pass? So Vijay Verma said, if the message decoder is the same as the sender intended, communication is successful. But this is very hard. Like no verbal communication responds for 93% of the communication nowadays. That's that makes total difference in approach of success, especially for the leadership, of course. And to gather people to engage, to motivate, it will be mostly non-verbal. But how you do that in the digital world? So that's a real challenge. So use, under my experience, what I can share with you, you have a lot of tools and techniques in in project management and risk analysis that you can use them to improve communication and engaging. So we're going to discuss then later how you can use these tools, these techniques to motivate people, to make them feel important, to stimulate collaboration, to stimulate engagement, to reduce tough conflicts. We're gonna talk that a bit later, okay? Let's talk about the most important documents, in my opinion, of risk prevention for leadership. I'm not talking about risk prevention in general, risk management in general for the whole project. No, let's clear on that. So for me, in this topic, with this objective for leadership, the stakeholders register. I just picked two templates of stakeholders register, so you can see you can be more more improved with different colors and analysis, but the message is map every person involved in the project. Who is more risk tolerant? Who is more risk averse? Understand the role of motivation determining teammates and stakeholders' performance. Classify the basic needs of them, and apply motivation theories that we just passed. Understand the importance of rewards and sometimes punishment. Unfortunately, it's a tool that you have to have for people that are not contributing or causing problems. And Matt, you can use qualitative and quantitative analysis for people, for professionals. Why not? You're assessing the probability impact of that person not being engaged or committing a failure or making an error. So if he or she do that, how we will perform, how we will make a risk response for that, how we will impact the problems for the project objectives, and you can tag them to the project objectives. Okay, this is the second document, the risk register. You can combine with the stakeholders register, perform as I said, the quantitative and qualitative analysis, define risk thresholds and risk triggers, and guarantee your project manager authority in the project charter. I will talk about this authority as I said before. Talking about leadership, I guess we've heard a lot the difference being a leader and being a boss. That leader motivates, engages, challenges, innovates. That's awesome. And like managers, peer managers, and bosses, they control, they focus on objectives, autocracy, procedures, controlling. Yes, that's true. But sometimes you need to be a boss on some special occasion. Of course, it has a cost, it has a price, and it's your last resource. Don't use it like constantly, only when extremely necessary. But I do not eliminate this kind of behavior, okay? Because you need sometimes you need to use your authority to make things happen, okay? Another two important documents, the work breakdown structure and the risk breakdown structure. What I point here for risk management in this the two documents for achieving objectives in leadership. When you have a long-term project, imagine you planned to deliver a change or improvement in 18 months. And in your plan, the break-even point will be after 10, 12 months. You need to survive this 10, 12 months, motivating your team and the stakeholders and the sponsors. So how do you do that? So some tips that I give to you. First, in the risk breakdown structure, the human resource you need to classify, you need to understand, to insert in the RBS with like as I said before, in the stakeholders registers, making the risk triggers, the thresholds you can use and in the risk register, and you consider that. And in the WBS, if you can put what I call small victories, that achievements and all smaller deliverables that you can make and deliver them in a shorter time. I will discuss that in the business case, but you it's like small rewards along the journey that you motivate the team, that you say, look, it's possible to achieve. Sometimes it seems too hard and too far away from achieving that. And keep it up day by day in your routine of motivating, engaging all this professionals. If you can put like a short term in 2 months, 3 months deliverable or achievement, it's important. So try to put that, include that in the WBS. Okay, I will discuss a real case that I faced that helped a lot. Okay, so tools and techniques for communication, as we said before. So what are the tools the project manager can use to engage teammates? Some information gathering techniques that we have, like expert interviews, Delphi technique, brainstorming, root cause identification analysis, SWOT analysis, the performance meetings, war room. These are all tools for performing risk management and project management that you can use to motivate, to engage people. How we do that? Like the concepts. Let's look about the concepts of expert interviews. You bring the expert, you pick, you identify who are the experts in your team, internal and external. But when you bring them, you interview them, it's kind of an award. You're saying to them, you're important. I acknowledge you as an expert, as somebody unique in the organization, in the plant. And that's why I need your knowledge to be shared with the team. Brainstorming is also good for gathering people together. So you put everybody in the room, you stimulate ideas, the contributions, you encourage free flow of information and sharing without criticism and fear. So be careful for not letting interpersonal conflicts arise during the discussions, especially if you are a consultant, if you're entering organizations to make a change, to build something, and you are sharing a human resource with different areas, you might face existing conflicts between groups or between people, professionals there. So during the brainstorming meetings, you need to access before who are the potential problems and the potential conflicts when you bring in brainstorm. So instead of brainstorming, you have a conflict storming. Let's not having that. And once more, that's why I said the stakeholders register. It's the most essential document. You need to do that in the initiation phase, and you need to map who you're dealing with. Okay. But I like the Delph technique because you anonymously get the information from the expert to reach a consensus, and that's important to avoid biased information. You can have a lot of different reasons for having a biased information from a person or from a professional. Sometimes the person is not interested and just agree with a person for not spending much time talking with you, or if they don't like a professional or they have disagreements with another professional, they will just say something differently just to disagree, you know, and to make, oh, I don't agree with that or I don't like that. And you can avoid that with the Delphi technique. The root cause analysis, you also bring experts and try to understand the whys of a risk occur and examine the causes, the why to determine what can be done. So the Ishikawa, the fishbone diagram is a great tool for that. And once more, like brainstorming, you engage people, you assemble the team and the stakeholders, and you make them, you are part of the solution. Let's bring up the solution here. I like them a lot. Planning meetings. Always plan a meeting in advance. Who will participate? Why? How she or he can contribute to the topic, to the matter, to the solution. Only invite members or experts, stakeholders directly involved with the topic, the solution. You need to assess if you have a big team involved. It's a project with too many people involved or few people involved. So If you have a small team involved, you always do you use that resource because we don't have many. But if you're talking about big organizations, select the people, you know, because you can overpopulate your meeting and it's not going to be efficient. So just bring the ones for that specific topic. You can take to another phase of another meeting with other people for the next step, okay? And but also when select people, be aware for not excluding important professionals. That's why once more I say it about the stakeholders register. You map everybody involved. It can be vendors, it can be people from different departments, it can be sponsors, everyone. Okay, so do not exclude because this can cause lack of motivations or arise jealousies, conflict, and even oppositors. Okay, so these were the concepts, these were the tools techniques. So let me give you a real case right now that I worked with. So we have two different scenarios here. The first is an electronic manufacturer that had a problem of $20 million of annual loss with cargo transportation. And the project objective was to reduce in 50% those losses in a year. The second case is the loss ratio of a meat processor company. The insurance policy loss ratio was very high, was unprofitable, was negative, and they were paying a lot of money in insurance premium, and we need to reduce that. So what was the scenario in both cases and in the different? In case one, the project manager is an employee of the company. He has the authority. I'm talking about he because I'm talking about a case of myself. I was the project manager in both cases. Okay. So I had the authority to make the change and start the RFPs for vendors and for change, and because of work performance, I had a project team dedicated and partially dedicated employees from the department, to the logistics department. And the project sponsors were the logistics vice president and the CEO of the insurance company. In the second case, the project man was an employee of an insurance broker working as a consultant. He had no authority to direct many change on start B's RFP for vendors. He had to influence and convince decision makers to do that if needed. The project sponsors were the controllers, the controller of the company, and the logistics manager. Both cases initially shows poor performance of essential vendors, the risk prevention companies that were hired for monitoring the travels and the trucking trips. So what happened in this both cases? In this both cases, we had to make change. So change management was important. In both cases, the main objective was to reduce loss. In one case, the project manager had the authority to make the change. So in some special case, he could be the boss. In the second one, no. He was only a leader. He has to influence the project team, the stakeholders. But in both cases, the project man had the full support of the project sponsors. What happened in these two cases? In the first case, we have two different operations. First, we have the distribution, local distribution in the big cities. Both happen in Brazil. And you have the long run transfers from state to state. The highest losses were on the long run transfers, and the one that would take longer to improve because it required a lot of change and improvements and bids and selection of vendors. So we planned in the work break structure a deliverable to be reached in 2 months. It was 12 months because it had a lot of criticism and many important professionals were skeptical about the change because many people passed it before me and failed. So in 2 months, we were able to make the loss ratio and in the distribution in the big cities profitable and reduce almost to zero the loss. This made a huge impact on leadership because honestly speaking, in the first 2 months when we have the meetings and the war rooms, trying to make the brainstorms, it was only critics. Oh, what you're saying, we already tried. It doesn't work. You're trying to reinvent the wheel. It was tough. And in the lunch meetings, we always heard, oh, this guy knows anything. He thinks he can teach us what we've been done for 10 years. And he wants to create something different. When we start to have our small victories, they said, oh, he's a stupid guy, but he was lucky. He made something different. He could achieve that, but I doubt he can make better things. And everything was, but step by step, month by month, we were engaging more the stakeholders and bringing more people and believe we could achieve at that goal. That was very hard. And it was a very successful. We made the change. We had oppositors and we had vendors with poor performance. We had to change them. And they have a personal relationship with some managers in the department. It caused a lot of conflict. But the vice president and the insurance company gave full support, and we could make that change. So the outcome, the result was successful. We reached the reduction in 50%. The second case, this structure we had like the logistics director and the logistics manager. The logistics director had an idea that they were paying a lot of insurance premium, that it was worthless, and they have that the losses in the operation was part of the business because they were very big and reductions would be very difficult. The logistics manager now, he believed that we could change that. So we start to make the small victories. We use part of our fee, a broker fee, to pay a consulting risk prevention company to work inside our customers, to be in their office and help them to make the change, to see the problem. And along the way, we met in both cases the stakeholders. We have to replace some staff. But in the second case, I haven't had the power of changing vendors. And when we start to show the problem of a vendor, it creates a huge problem. And the logistics director, he said, okay, I can make it. I know we could change the vendor, but they were underpriced. It was very cheap. They could never perform a good work with that budget. And they didn't want to increase the budget. So it was complicated. It was funny once we made a meeting to use the Ishikawa diagram on the root cause of a problem. And I knew the problem was the monitoring center that the vendor performed. But they were trying to to use the fishbone diagram to change the focus on their problem and find another one, and focus on another problem that was not the root cause of the poor performance of monitoring. So it was a useless meeting. And what happened? We could prove that the problem was, one of the main problems was the poor performance of this vendor, but caused by a budget. And the controller was pushing the logistics director, and the logistics manager was also pushing to make the change, but they didn't want to spend more. We could make a difference in the distribution as well. We reduced the loss significantly, but in the long runs, we're still poor. But a problem arises. You cannot match everything. Our main sponsor, that was the controller, he went to a conference by another vendor, sponsored by another vendor, that respected the bylaws of the company, of his company, and he got fired because of that. So we lost our main sponsor in the project, and it was very skilled by the logistics director. He had one oppositor out of the project, and the group, the company has different companies. The group, they have other companies in the group, and he could find a promotion for the logistics manager to be a supervisor in another division of the company. So in 2 months, we lost our two main sponsors. After 3 months, he could convince the president of the company that they would not go on with this project. He preferred to save money with insurance and admit the losses and accept the losses in the transportation operation, and they ended our contract. So I brought these two cases for you to show that failures can happen, and two cases of successful and failure. So bringing it up, what can happen, and the outcomes, the different outcomes that is possible. Be mindful. Failure is always there. This is always waiting for you. And a small wrong step that you take, the failure will show up. Okay, that was my message. So I hope you now can bring up the sentence you wrote in the beginning of my explanation. And the question I ask you, I want to hear now your sentence so you can make questions and everything. But did you make any changes on your sentence after listening to the techniques and the business case? I'm curious about that, to know how could I contribute this year. That was my lecture for today. I hope I could share some good thoughts with you. Let me, Ferlicius, I'm open for questions. I want to hear the sentences now.
Do you mind to put on the slides where you asked again? Because I didn't really, for me, I'm not sure about others, I didn't quite complete my sentence. I think that might be helpful for those who have not gotten that the first. I'm pretty sure a few of us might have changed along the way after listening what you have shared with us. Thank you.
I'm open for questions. If you want to, like 2 or 3 minutes more for writing your sentence, I can come back to the first slide of the exercise. No, not this. Yeah, this one. Oh, we have a question here. Danielle Gilstrap. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Question: for conflict negotiation, you recommend not taking things personally. How do you get your colleagues to do that? Well, uh, you are the leader, so in the first meetings, on the kickoff meeting, you can express that. You say, look, we are all colleagues, we have our personal feelings, we have different personalities. All we are doing here is to find objectives. Sometimes we will disagree, and this is important. Sometimes we don't need to all agree every time, but let's do it in a professional way. And because a person is not agreeing with you, doesn't mean he or she has something against you. So and sometimes what is good is to make celebrations, happy hours, and try to, you don't need the team and the colleagues to be friends. You just, essentially, you just need them to work professionally and cooperate with each other, you know. So this happy hours, lunch, nowadays during the pandemic, what I saw, I'm a member of the Brazil California Chamber of Commerce, and we have a partnership with the Harbor Trucking Association from Long Beach. And something they made that was really interesting. They provide on Friday afternoons virtual happy hour. So they have a Zoom meeting and make groups only to discuss about topics, things they like to do, to talk about football or TV shows. Everybody grabs their drinks and their bites, and the company team can sponsor that. You can send to their house um, or beers or food, something that they like if you have in budget. Always good to have on your budget uh, celebrations. Uh, you can afford lunch, meetings, happy hours, because it helps to to break the ice, to put people more friendly with each other. These are some things. I hope I have clarified a bit more about that on my personal experience at least. Any other questions? You write your sentence.
I can start. I can share mine. I only write down a few words based on make a sentence that reflects the meaning of the word, event.
Awesome.
So miscommunication,
Mental
miscommunication is one of the problem in leadership. Sometimes if the message is not clearly conveyed to the team, and sentence that reflects impact of leadership, I choose the word keyword misunderstanding sometimes when the message doesn't come across to the team members or even the board members that will have caused in misunderstanding that impact the leadership, the trustworthy of the leaders. And make a sentence that reflects probability on leadership. This I'm not quite sure, but I give it a try. I use it caused disagreement, conflicts in the project. So to combine all three is miscommunication in leadership will create misunderstanding with the people around them they work with, and also creates conflicts and disagreement for the project. That is one of the risk in project.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Got the idea.
And I hope
Yeah,
anyone that is in the call too, welcome to share your learning and how did you put up a sentence.
I don't know here in the West, but when I was a kid in on elementary school, we had a play we called it's difficult to translate, but it's say like near telephone that we sit on a round on a circle, and the first person said a sentence in the year of the next one, and the sentence was passed through person to person, and the last person would say what he heard or he or she heard, and it never would be the same of the first one that said that, and this totally happens in projects in communication. It's a play I first learned when a kid, and it's always happened. So it expresses mainly what you just said, Ferlicius. You need to be clear, and the ways of communications. Written sentence is good because nobody will change. So it's important to share with the team all communication, all change. Sometimes not for the decision making moment because it impacts a lot of people, and you have to take the decisions with top management and the project team, but always share and show to everybody involved and make the communication is a process. It's a process flow along the organization. So defining process of communication method, it's important. And it makes totally different. So any more sentence? Who's next?
This is a workshop. Welcome to share your work. You can unmute yourself anytime. It's open for the floor.
I'll share. The sentence I came up with combined with all of the factors is if leaders don't understand or acknowledge the daily stresses or the reality of the job requirements of their employees, this will cause distrust in leadership, which will result in employees' dissatisfaction, disengagement, and ultimately turnover.
Perfect. Very good one.
I'll go ahead and share one.
Go ahead.
So this is something that I've been working on for a while, but it's to create an environment with clear and concise communication and ensure that the sub leadership, or basically the IPT leaders, understand the full depth of the task and the timelines and fully explore unknown areas. And the reason I say that is because I was running a project and I had a transition from one engineer to another engineer. and we sat down, went over all the tasks that needed to be done and the timelines that needed to be done, but they didn't explore that last part of the unknown areas. And there was a critical piece of information that was not shared and not questioned, and that led to the failure of my testing project and the damage of multiple employees, vehicles, and everything else. So it ended up costing the company probably about $100,000, and plus our insurances went up and everything else. The only good thing that came out of it is it revamped our safety protocols and put the new policies in place when we had high pressure type the testing going on, because some of the stuff that I would do was conducted at pressures of 6,000 psi levels. So any piece of plastic becomes a bullet. So at that speed. So, but I was lucky from that standpoint. But that's just something I've worked on to mitigate risk. And once that risk was realized, it really drives the point down that you never know what you don't know, and you need to make sure that you explore everything that you don't know and elevate those risks so that you can at least have an idea and trying to mitigate them, even if you might be slightly off the mark. So.
Yeah, it happens a lot, not only in theory. The transferring process is very fragile in many ways. I believe you have mapped and made the risk analysis on the initiation planning phase, but it's impossible to map all unknown parts of the project. It's always a risk, and at least you now have a historical timeline about that, and you're gonna use as a benchmark for the next one. So it shouldn't, but it happens. The next one. Somebody else to share with us or your sample?
Yeah, this is Lee. I took it from a very high perspective, and simply my sentence was that project leaders should assess project risks and obviously the probability of risks, and determine how to mitigate these in favor of a successful project outcome. So it's a very high level statement, but it kind of leads me to a question for you, Cleber, which is, in both of the two projects that you highlighted and shared with us, what did your risks show for each one, and what was the challenge in mitigating, even in the case of failure of the one project versus successful outcome in the other?
Well, I would say that the two key points, we mapped it, the planning was well developed in both cases. We identified most of the risks, we mapped it, and we mapped the stakeholders and all personal risks. But something unexpected, that we lost the project sponsors, and something different, that when you are part of the team of the organization, it's totally different. You are more empowered to make the change. And remember what I said, sometimes you need to be the boss, not the leader.
Mm.
In few cases, I had to be the boss and make the change. Okay, it had to be done. Because we mapped it, we knew we have no other alternative, and it happened. As a consultant, as an outsourced project manager, you cannot do that. So you only have your influencing skills and to make the decision makers to change. And in the second case, we had a stakeholder, an important stakeholder, that had completely made his mind that that project was not the way, not the solution. and he was against the project. But we had two main sponsors helping us, and something that I didn't predict it. It was that one of that sponsors would made a personal mistake and trespassed the rules of the company and got fired. And I lost my pillars, my two pillars on that project. That stakeholder was not my enemy, but he had different view. He said, for the company, I prefer it's about risk tolerance, and I prefer a smaller saving with insurance, not paying insurance, than a higher saving that would take longer and more effort to reduce operational loss and then reduce the insurance premium. He didn't want to take that journey, and he was a bit lucky, and he won. Let's say that. And I don't know if it was 7 years ago. I don't know how they are performing right now. I don't know if he's still there or not. But the point is, the company was very profitable. They are the largest meat processor in the world. To have an idea, they have companies in a lot of places. So when you have companies that are profitable, they just fire the manager of and put another somebody else and push them to bring results. And they are not too keen to make the change, internally in the team, the staff. I guess that made difference. That was the scenario. And here, I had other projects here in the US with my company as a consultant. They were smaller, but for a Korean GPS manufacturer in the US market. We achieved that with major deliverables. Now we are just consultants. But it was easy because we were starting from zero and everybody had the same objective and the same goal. I didn't have to make change. We just have to build and deliver. It's much easier when in this scenario.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else to share your statement with us? Or any questions?
Or anyone would like to share with any case scenario that how you handle risk in your project, and it can be an open conversation with the attendees here, and especially when Cleber is the expert in here as well, and how we can learn from you, learn from your case, learn from your project in your organization. Feel free to share.
No one else? That's okay. Ferlicius, have any questions?
No, I don't have questions.
I don't know if I'm still sharing. Well, any particular topic that I mentioned here, you understand, you would like me to clarify? Or particularly, I'm curious about if you're gonna use or write your stakeholders register for next project differently or add something else. I hope you can always use risk management. Risk management, risk reviews, it must be performed along the entire project life cycle. in all phases, in all transitions, because as you said, Ed, unknown risk always will show up along the project. Always. You cannot predict everything in the beginning because things change, things are interactive, society change. Imagine project that started before the pandemic. You had to change a lot of things along the way. So a final message about there's a consultant, a professor in Brazil called Vicente Falcone from Falcone Consulting, and he wrote a book. I don't know if they have in English. This is the book. It says The Real Power. It's very interesting to he describes practice and measures and management to bring good results. It's being careful with the process and the method. How he said, managing a company is bring objective results to improve and change continuously the company in a way to provoke and accomplish the change from the society. Society is constantly changing. Market is constantly changing. So change management and managing the process internally in organizations are very important, are essential. So always keep a focus on the objectives of your stakeholders. He also said. For organizations, for companies, always with a focus on the financial side because profit matters. Thank you very much. That's what I had to share. Let me put my personal contact, share my personal contact with you here. Oops. This is my email, the contact of my company, my cell phone, my company's phone. I'm available if you want to share some thoughts, discuss some ideas, have any project together. If you need something logistics, telematics, I'm more than happy to talk with you. Okay. So thanks, Ferlicius, for the opportunity. I'm available if you have anything else.
Thank you, Cleber, for having this with sharing your knowledge, your expertise. And you're welcome to screenshot this information. Also, at the end, when I send in this replay to you, I will include Cleber contact as well. So why don't we take a 10 minutes break before our second session? Is that okay? Is that enough 10 minutes? Okay, let's resume the meeting at 10:25. All right, see you in a bit.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cleber. All right, we are back. 10:25. Well, close to. Did we lose anybody? Wiki has to step out earlier. I will help her to close up the session later and also announce the PDU. Okay, let's get started on session 2, which is the heart of communication. And how many of you actually, you can raise your hand or put in the chat that find that communication as a project manager is the most important key elements than anything else. Thank you for letting me know. Yes, it is. And also, if you notice that recently it has come to really important subject for a lot of project managers, that communications, anything soft skills are driven, communication driven training has been acquired by corporations to not only to train the managers, the leaders, but also the team members in terms of improving the communication in any way. So today I would like to share with you what I've learned and also practically used as a project consultant in serving the clients. So it is not what you say, but how you say it. We know that there's a lot of ways we can say a sentence to describe a project, to describe a task to our team member. And often the same task that we are describing to an engineer, to a marketing person is so different in how they perceive and receive the information we try to deliver. So today I would like to share with you how to say the same thing. It is not a new thing that I invented. Of course, I learned from someone else, and then I adapted to my career, my profession, and I'm here to share with you and hope that you can take away some of the tools, techniques, and resources that is applicable to you, your team, and also in your leadership. And it can be applied to your personal life as well. So I started my career with a national airline in Malaysia, and I helped them to transform their manual processes digitally during their business turnaround time. And then I'm actively involved in a cruising industry, travel industry, e-commerce, consumer goods, utilities, and construction, and even serving public sector wellness company as well. Then my name is Ferlicius Ong, and I'm here to honored to share with you this practice with you. So just now when we learned from Cleber that he talked about some key type of communications, right? He mentioned about the verbal communication consists of, I wrote down 38%. And then we also have nonverbal, which is 55%, according to the statistic. And then also have visual, he didn't really touch about, but I would talk about a little bit more. And written is 7%. So this type of communication, I believe that all of us are using it, like it or not, throughout our projects, right? Especially verbal, although it is only 38%, but when we are doing workshop like this, virtual meetings, conducting a live workshop or a live meeting, or even a seminar, those are one-to-many, one-to-one verbal communication that has a speaking, has presentation, you need to present anything to the board. So those are verbal communication in a project setting. And then for nonverbal, we often have some kind of more close-knit meeting, such as a project manager, as a project leader. Do you utilizing the nonverbal techniques to observe the facial expression of your team member, the body language of stakeholders, whether they like your idea or not, right? Usually during these buy-in meetings, we can kind of see their facial expression, they like your idea, or they nodding their heads as a nonverbal communication to your ideas, or even, showing any kind of body language that would disagree what you just said. So that is a very important component in communication as a project manager, as a project leader, even as a project coordinator, when you talk with other people, other stakeholders. So notice that how your emotional express in through your body, your physical body language, and conveying your message across to the people you are communicating. And then for visual, such as this, like when we are presenting, for example, we would like to present a chart. Is it good that we have the chart, put it in our presentation, and then speaking to the people that we are conveying our message? Or maybe could a picture would tell 1,000 words, and those visual added component in our communication, in our presentation, will be sometimes very much helpful. And you could actually notice that in my slide, I don't have much word, but I like to use images to help me to bring my ideas, bring my communication out. I'm more of a very visual aided communicator, that the images will help me to bring in the stories, the ideas, the things that I would like to share with the team. And of course, written is something that we can't avoid, because we usually write emails, text messages, and anything that black and white needed to be documented, whether you are utilizing any software tools like Jira, Confluence, putting your documentation, SharePoint, those are written communication, publications that it often occurs in our project communication. So I would like to actually, before I jump into the next subject, I would like to open up this to all of you, right? You are feel free to unmute yourself, because I want to make it as engaging, as interactive as possible. Share with me your communication method. What is your preference? And are you utilizing all of them, or which one do you use more? Let me stop sharing right now, and then I open up to the floor. Feel free to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely, Daniel.
So my preference is usually emails. I know a lot of people consider them old-fashioned now. So disclaimer, I'm a millennial. I'm not, so bust through that stereotype there. The reason is my company does utilize like an instant messaging program, but it's very intrusive when you're trying to focus and get work done. And I feel like people overutilize the instant messaging program because they just want answers, immediately, even when their question is not that urgent. And I've tried to communicate this to some of my colleagues, and have met with quite a bit of resistance, because, they want the information they want now, whereas I want to be able to prioritize work and get back to people as needed. And as for meetings, I cannot count the number of ineffective meetings I have sat in where I think, there's this common phrase, another meeting that could have just been an email.
Thank you for sharing, Daniel. Anyone that has a relatable experience as Daniel, which are utilizing messaging for priorities and getting quicker response, and also meetings could have been saved with just an email. How many of you actually relatable to that? Especially during this time, right? The virtual world has been just bombarding us.
Hi, this is Ed. So in my work, we use Teams for communication instantly, and obviously the Microsoft Suite. But I find that Teams is good for quick chats. If you can go ahead and just lay something out there, and they can respond at their leisure. It's only, and I find it's faster than email, because email gets a little bit bombarded in today's environment, because everybody's assigned to 5, 6 projects, so they're getting it from multiple things. So their inbox just, just like mine, goes ballistic every day, and so I find that that works well if you can take the time to do it. most people will just go ahead and do it. The things that it does get a little bit disruptive when you're that people don't look at what you're doing, right? And they just call. If it's your cell phone or your office phone or whatever, you can kind of put that on hold. But when you're in the middle of a meeting, it says you're in a meeting on Teams and they call you on Teams, you're kind of like, you're really not doing yourselves any justice. But I think that it's a big interruption there. And I know a lot of the stuff that I have to do is all critical path. So I have to actually stop, do dual meetings in both ears, which gets a little complicated. And sometimes I just have to stop ignoring on one to listen to the other. Yeah, but I find that, through Zoom, we really like to have the facial recognition there so that you see how their body language and their facial expressions are. The tone obviously means something when you're coming across and there's no visual there. So it gets a lot of misunderstanding, I guess, because you're not understanding you're just hearing a voice and you don't know if it's upset or if it's in doubt of what they're saying. You don't see it because there's no facial expression to go with it, because that delivers so much more. So I encourage my team to actually have their cameras on and talk about things and openly. And I bring them up, and you have to lay the groundwork, at least in my standpoint, is to say, hey, this you're not going to get in trouble by any means for anything you say. I'd rather you say it in front of the team. If you can't say it in front of the team and you can say it only to say it to me, I'm fine with that too. But it needs to be said, because I can't address it unless I know about it, right? Because then we go back to our first part of the meeting. It's an unknown risk. So I try and peel that onion at every meeting that I can through both verbal and nonverbal communication. But I find a lot of stuff, you could just do a quick chat thing and avoid a meeting or a phone call and because everyone's calendars, everyone thinks a meeting's a thing to do. And I don't think that's necessarily the right decision. If you need to make a decision, you've got to have the stakeholders online. That's the right forum. You don't want to do that in a chat. And I've seen some of my teammates say, let's just chat about it. No, I don't think so. But anyways, that's my 2 cents on that. So.
Thank you for sharing, Ed. That's a very important key point to open communication with the team, which is very play such a big role, whether it's chat, but of course with facial expression, body language that we can observe as team leaders, and also communicating with the team members through Zoom or available technology that allow us to get closer to the point we wanted to convey, and also get a agreement or disagreement in a brainstorming session. It's in a much better, in a much better understanding from their point of view. So is there anyone who would like to share, how do you conduct a meeting, not a meeting, I wouldn't say a meeting, how do you communicate with your team on a daily basis? Do you do more one verbal, non-verbal than the other, or anything else that would like to share with the team? Any preference? Okay. Oh, Randall.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
So, one of the major projects that I'm working on is following the SAFE, the Scaled Agile Framework methodology. And it spans, a couple of different teams. That's why we're using the SAFE process. So because we have an agile team, we have daily, we call them stand-ups, but really it's a daily, we use WebEx. So it's a daily WebEx. And it's a good way to connect every single day. We try to, they're scheduled for 20 minutes. Sometimes they go less, sometimes they go a little more, but we try to kind of keep it confined to that time period so that we can get updates from everybody, see what roadblocks there are. So I think that daily connect has been very helpful, as long as we try to keep it to the the amount of time we scheduled the meeting for. If it goes on and on beyond that time, it starts to become less productive. But I find that to be very helpful for our project team.
Thank you for sharing, Randall. I think daily stand-up is usually, most of the agile meetings, it usually works very well in the software driven or the software development projects. Is that correct? Or yeah. Which is a very interesting to understand from a software side of the world, and also from a construction side of the world, which daily stand-up may not be necessary works for them. And of course, and I hear what you're saying, that sometimes a frequent meeting, but short and sweet, concise, that get things done, and it will increase the productivity, improve open communications and whatnot. So is there anyone in the room that you have a different kind of communication method that you are using, and you would like to share with the team, that how we can learn from each other, even from an organization point of view? How do you actually conduct a productive meeting with your stakeholders? Is there anyone who would like to share that? No? Don't be shy. We are a communicator as a project manager. I would love and adore to hear from you. How do you conduct such meeting in a larger scale? Do you utilize verbal, of course, verbal, and do you utilize a written before your verbal meetings? Do you utilize visual in your presentation? And do you do nonverbal communication, like you observe their facial expression, body language, or even for yourself? How do you present, and how do you use your body language in such a meeting? Is there anyone who would like to share? No? That's okay if you don't like to share. But absolutely, when you conduct a meeting, think about these are the types of communications that you can use, whether or not you would like to combine them to make it a more meaningful meeting. Like some of us, when we have a meeting, we would like to have an agenda written straight to the point, that this is how the meeting is going to run in an email, or even a calendar setting. That's a written communication. And as when we start having the meeting, we will have a verbal communication. Of course, in a virtual meeting, sometimes we can't really see all of you or all of the participants. We can't really read their body language. And sometimes when we listen to the tone, we kind of still able to guess whether they are pleased or not pleased with the ideas, right? And also visual is more of, you can have some visual aid in your presentation, because in today's world, hopefully we get in a live meeting again. Otherwise, in a virtual meeting, it is always helpful to have some visual representation to people who are attending, because sometimes text is good. With visual, it helps you to bring your project to be more, how do you mean, more visualizing your project, how it is going to be, for example, like a milestone chart, or even a Gantt chart, right? That will be really helpful for the team as well. Okay, let's get to the next topic, and let me share the screen again. So the next one is connect with intent. Something I learned from Danny John, and she came up with this idea of using the gemstone to help to understand not just ourselves, our communication, our personality type, and also the personality type of other people, how we can connect, communicate better with people. And actually, you can raise your hand. How many of you actually came across this type of personality type using Sapphire, Emerald, Ruby, and Pearl? Haven't come across of this? great, because this is something I'm going to share today. Because if you have experienced other personality types like Myers-Briggs or even DISC, I think that is the most commonly used in corporates in terms of identifying your personality, right? So today, this is a very quick and easy, which I use a lot when I talk to people. And even the people, I don't have to go through all the Myers-Briggs assessment to understand this personality type. Just through by talking to them and listening to their tone, or sometimes their body language, you will kind of see which type generally this person might be, and you can use or adapt to the tone that you communicate with, right? I would like you to actually use a pen and paper right in front of you. Draw a quadrant. And so when I go through the traits, write down there are 4 gem type in each quadrant. Okay. So this is how we're going to identify which gem type or we are, right? Sometimes we can be a sapphire pearl, we can be a sapphire ruby, or you are dominant ruby, right? I will go through the traits with you and then see how it is going. So when I go through the traits, you would just need to put a check mark if that is more relevant to you. Throughout the whole chart, you can see what are really it kind of represents. So if you are a sapphire, right, you believe life should be fun, full of good times, and live to the fullest, right? This is a few examples, like you are motivated by fun, and you love networking, you are outgoing, you are extroverted, you work hard for recognition, not necessarily for money, but for the recognition of you are doing such a great job. And you always see the positive side of the things or a situation, and often just neglect the negative side of it. So to elaborate more about Sapphire is that if you have heard of the YOLO, you only live once kind of a outgoing personality. They like to have party, always have fun. If you find an organizer that always organizing party, and that might be a Sapphire. They like a group of people. They talk a lot sometimes. You cannot stop, but they just love to share the stories, and they carry so much of positive energy. Sometimes they also drain someone else's energy too if they talk too much. So if this is if this traits, I only put 5 traits, and if these 5 checks apply to you, you can absolutely put 5 checks on the Sapphire box. Okay, let's get ready to second one, which is Ruby. If you need something done properly, you must do it yourself. And Ruby usually identified as a lone wolf. It's an opposite of Sapphire. Sapphire likes to be around with a lot of people, and Ruby sometimes, most of the time, they like to be by themselves. And Ruby are motivated by the challenges. They love winning, and they are goal and result driven. They get to the point, and they have strong personality. What do I mean by that? Ruby usually just go straight to the point. They don't like to waste time. They don't like to waste resources. They know that they are determined to their goal. They want to achieve the target in a certain milestone, like in a project. They are so goal oriented, and you can't miss the deadline. And they are some of the extreme Ruby are quite bossy. So if this is you, you can definitely check some of. It doesn't necessarily mean Ruby is bossy. It's just that the personality is they want to get things done, and it means done. It's not like you can have a half completed work. It is unacceptable for Rubies. And then we will go to Emerald. Emerald is the most essential asset in any good project or business or happy group of friends, because they are like the gel that hold things together. So what do we mean by Emerald is the Emerald is motivated by the logic, the common sense, and the love the facts, and especially Excel. They're very good in Excel and very organized. very productive in a way that they track everything down to the details, and yeah, details oriented. And if you notice that there are some, we notice that some of the people that we work with, right? For example, a business analyst or a system analyst, they were able to write all the details so precisely that we can understand, or even you will have a coder or programmer that would be able to tell you how this logic going to work, everything that works in their mind, and they can just list it down in a manner that a Ruby would not even get to it. So Ruby and Emerald sometimes is, or actually a Sapphire will never understand what Emerald is trying to say. So they are quite opposite from each other. And then comes to Pearl. Pearl put others first and make wonderful listeners and reliable friends. If this is you, you most likely motivated by love to help others, and you are thoughtful, you are insightful and empathetic, and value close connection. Pearl likes people too. Unlike with Sapphire, Sapphire likes a big group of people, but Pearl, they like a small group of people that you know them very well. Just keeping 3 of them, having a potluck is a happy life. You value trust above all. You can't be dishonest to a Pearl, and they dislike confrontation. So Pearl likes to keep things to themselves as well. But when they open up, it takes time for them to open up to someone. So with that said, I would like to open up this again to kind of would love you to share with me and share with the group. What did you find out? Or am I too fast? Does anyone know that they have any dominant gem type within them?
Yeah, this is Lee. Definitely Emerald and Pearl.
Definitely Emerald and Pearl.
Yeah.
How about anyone else?
This is Randall. Mine came out dominant Ruby and Emerald.
Ruby and Emerald.
I don't think I'll ever be able to communicate well with a Sapphire.
We will come to that. Anyone
this
else?
is Ed. I came in as a strong Ruby and Emerald.
Okay. Anyone else would like to share?
I came in as an Emerald and a little bit of Pearl and maybe a tweak of Sapphire because I like seeing the positive side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is possible that we have if we have check mark on each other, each of the quadrant, and sometimes we also in a situation, adaptive situation, right? We want to talk about, and knowing that we can use this personality type to understand our team members as well. Just like Randall was sharing, you may not be able to speak very well or communicate very well with someone who is opposite from you, such as Sapphire and Pearl. Because as a strong Ruby and Emerald, we always want things fast, facts, and then just keep going, bum, 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 as a project leader. However, we cannot forget that we also have team member in our group. As the project leader, we also want to empower our team to be able to show our empathy and listen to them by adapting to their gem type. What I mean is that knowing that we are a strong Ruby and a strong Emerald, sometimes we may want to tone it down a little bit to understand the Pearl what they wanted to say. Or it can be like I have to admit myself, I cannot be with a Sapphire because it's going to drain me so much. The energy is just being able to try to adapt to Sapphire is impossible. But how are we going to bring the Sapphire actually to slow down and have a communication, a meaningful communication with the team member? Because knowing that not everybody is Sapphire. And I would like you to take this a practice to start observing the people you are working with, what kind of gem type they are, and how you are able to adapt to their gem type. Or, for example, bring the sapphire, come to the center point, and tone down a little bit and start communicating. I think communication with different gem type is really, really important. And I do want to encourage you to check out the gem type. You can definitely Google the gem personality type. How do you work with them? And I absolutely would love to share with you some of the notes I took down when I do some research and using the gem type. After this session, I would love to send to you and how you are able to communicate with them, collaborate with them, and things like this. So it is a very short sharing from me, but I really wanted to use this opportunity to open up to the floor, and because it's a workshop and we deal with real project, it's not theory, it is practical to us. We deal with project in life, we deal with project in organization, and open up this floor for us. It's because it's a workshop, and I really wanted to understand from you as well as project manager, project leader, or even whatever role you have, but in project management, how do you able to utilize these tools and techniques that you have gathered so far and being able to take forward, because you're not here just to gathering the information, but I really do hope that you will use these tools that to carry on with your project. So is there anyone would like to share how you can implement maybe a week or a month from now with your project team on the tools that Cleber has shared with us on the risk management and as well as the communication methods?
I have kind of a question.
Sure.
So personally, I think I'm Emerald and Sapphire, but I feel like I work with quite a few team managers who are Rubies. They're very domineering, and sometimes in meetings, it can be hard to rein them in. They tend to take over a little bit, their personalities, and they can clash quite frequently since there's several of them. So I kind of wanted to just pose an open question to everyone to see if anyone else has that sort of experience and how they've dealt with it, because I would love to get advice. Like as the project manager, I'm frequently responsible for meeting management, but it can be very hard to rein in these strong personalities and get them on track to get what everyone needs out of the meeting. Especially as, you know, they're a higher level than I am, and it's always a little tricky in meetings. You know, project manager trying to rein in the functional managers. So anyone's advice, I would just love to hear.
Let us hear from Randall and Ed. You have a dominant Ruby in you. How would you like people to communicate with you?
Well, for me, I want them to be honest and upfront about it. I don't want to hear it through back channels. So from another person, basically, it's not afraid to tell me. I mean, I really work hard because I am a strong personality when I get into some of these meetings to back off a little and to let people have their say so that they can get their information. And that's tough for me because I'm used to and very adept at just taking the lead and leading the change and going in a direction and setting the goal. So it's a challenge for me when I get into a meeting, but you know, I when I have a meeting, it's, you know, it's we go through the topics that I have on my plate, and they know that about that. And at the end of every one, I raise, is there any other questions or concerns or just something you have to state about that to the group, and let's get it out on the table. And, you know, in that, it took a while for the different teams I was on to actually start to feel comfortable with that and recognize that they're not going to get shut down on that. I'm going to take note of it. I always look at it. on those types of things. I take notes of it, and I use it more as like a parking lot when you're doing the brainstorming, and I just parking lot all that stuff. And that goes into, for me, it goes into an Excel spreadsheet or onto my Outlook to-do list. And then, we bring up a secondary conversation saying, hey, does anybody have any additional thoughts about that, like the following week or depending. So there's going to be some time for them to digest it as a team. And that seems to, really motivate the team to speak up more, because I know it's just not a generic question. It's like, yeah, he's just asking that just because he has to. But when and I've got enough detail in my process is that I set those things and I have those reminders, and they go, okay, and they're going through and they're starting to assess, and they bring it up, and we're starting, on some of my more critical path programs that we're identifying more and more risks and that we can explore. And then, we'll have little targeted meetings that, only run maybe 15 minutes for that, so that we can get farther down that path and understanding. And then, obviously, having those stakeholder meetings, right, with the senior management, and then being concise about what we're talking about with them. And, of course, when the CEO or whenever, or a general manager or segment manager is coming up, and you got to let them have their piece, even though they're right, wrong, or indifferent. You got to let them have their piece, because they're one of your stakeholders. So you got to listen. So, but that's kind of the way I run my days. So in all the different meetings, and I'm running about 12 different complicated programs, and they're all past due, and they're all handed to me for the most part, from another program manager that didn't really have the skill set to do the work, but they moved on. So now I'm left with the flaming bag to get the flames down, and the bag not to stink, and hopefully not break while it's doing all the other things. So anyways.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Ed, for sharing. Yeah, Randall, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of those points. And I think my perspective on this is, when somebody is kind of becoming dominant in a meeting or kind of taking over, it's probably because there's a concern that this person has that isn't being highlighted or addressed. And it could be from just their experience and knowledge. They know, this is maybe going off the rails and nobody else sees that, or their perception is that's what's happening. So I think, for somebody who's not a Ruby or Emerald or whatever, here in that situation, trying to facilitate a meeting and somebody starts doing that, is to give them a little bit of space to express their opinion and look past the emotion that might be coming out to hear the message. And I think if you acknowledge back to them relatively quickly into what they're talking about, what you think their message is, so that they feel heard, I think that will actually diffuse, if it is becoming a little bit confrontational, I think that would actually help to diffuse. And then you can say, that's a great point. It seems, let me make sure I understood what you're saying. Is this what you're saying? That's a great point. Let's see what others think about that. And this may require us to have a separate session just to talk about that particular item. Or people in the meeting will say, oh, okay, thanks for bringing that up. We actually have addressed that, and this is how we've done it. And then then they're happy. Or as long as they feel heard, and maybe there will be a follow-up action. I think it may not work every single time, but that, like, just thinking of myself personally, I think that would help, me kind of step back and say, okay, we're going to talk about this. They hear what I'm trying to say. So that might help in some instances.
Thank you, Randall, for sharing. So Daniel, did you have some good ideas on how are you going to use some of the tactic that Ed and Randall shared with you? Because that's really coming from a very dominant Ruby Emeralds, that what they want to hear from a meeting, what they want to see, how they wanted to be approached?
Yeah, I was taking notes the entire time. So I wrote down honesty, be upfront, be concise, make sure they're feeling heard, and offer to set up a follow-up meeting to address specific points that are being brought up if they're getting too into the weeds.
Mm-hmm. And also remember, rubies and emerald, they love straight to the point, facts and result-driven idea. Or if you have a before and after kind of a showcase that you can present it to them and tell them straight to the point that this is how much you're gonna save money, or how much you can make, or how this project can be closed in a better way, that will really catch their attention too. Is there anyone would like to share? For example, let's say we reverse the role, right? You have a project manager, or you have a stakeholder who is very driven, who is very Pearl and very Sapphire. How would you handle that? Is there anyone, you have someone that is a stakeholders or project leaders that who is very emerald driven and who is the Pearl, that how would you like to be approached? Should I start asking the names? So let's start with Lee. You mentioned about you were an emerald and Pearl. How would you like to be approached from a team member? Or
Well, I think just very straightforward works for me. I don't deal well with people that are confrontational. I've had a few situations in my career where something was pointed at me and other people at my level, and yet the person who was leveling that at us hadn't done his homework. And it was not a pleasant situation, especially when attempting to stand up to a senior manager who didn't have his facts straight. Personally, I prefer an open, honest dialogue that is not leveled with a lot of emotion and histrionics. Don't need it. We've all got a job to do, but it's good to attempt to at least listen to the sapphire first, and then attempt to obviously reflect what you think you're hearing, but to try and tone it down so that you can have a straightforward conversation about what's really at the heart of the problem. And just attempt to diffuse, but get to the heart of the matter, because that's the most important thing. And then to, as with risk, attempt to mitigate, the concern, whatever the situation is, and to deal with it with an attempt to deal with it in a positive manner, to say, well, yes, okay, I understand, I hear what you're saying. Here's what we need to, in my estimation, look at and attempt to deal with it, because the whole point of success, in our projects is being able to obviously mitigate situations like these, but to be able to say, here's what our goal is. And assuming you have realistic requirements and expectations of the goal, then that's what we're all working toward as a team. And if you can't get to that basis, if you don't have everybody on board with that concept, and that has to come from the top down, then you've got a very steep hill to climb. So that's kind of my take on it.
Thank you for sharing, Lee. And I really love this conversation, because we have a combination of gems types, and we learn how to adapt ourselves, like what Lee just mentioned, to listen to a sapphire, because they have so much things to share, good things to share, and sometimes not really the bad things. It lifts up the team spirit when you start a meeting in the morning. So, and also use some techniques that can tone down the sapphire for the advantage of the rest of the team, because everyone has the say. And different gem types, of course, we as a project leader, project manager, we utilize different techniques to adapt to their gem type, to their tone. For example, speaking to a Ruby, short to the point, not a lengthy full of text. And to a Sapphire, maybe a lengthy full of story will help them to understand the concept. Maybe for Pearl, we will understand, as long as our ultimate goal is being able to help people and being able to help the movement, the impact of the project, and that will be very likely to catch the Pearl's attention. And for Emerald, supplying facts, logics, the pros and cons, the analysis, all of the SWOT analysis, you can name it, the risk management assessment, that will really bring in the Emerald's attention, and together all different types of gems in a team, which is, we acknowledge that it's unavoidable that we will have multiple gem types in one team, and how we really do manage the communication on a day-to-day basis. Again, I would like anyone who haven't shared, if you would like to share some of your, like, what is your gem type and what difficulty you may have, and if you want to pick some of the any of our brain in the room, because we are from different gem type, we may have come across the experience that we work with, the people that we work with, that can share with you. Anyone else?
I just wanted to share one more thing.
Sure.
So this is something I learned 20 plus years ago in a training class that work sent me to. And it was specifically about communication. And the one thing that I pulled out of that is stuck with me forever is that I can't change the way I communicate, or excuse me, I can't change the way anybody else communicates. That's just a fact. But what I can do and what I have control over is how I communicate with each one of those individuals. So it's up to me to figure out how to best communicate with them and to change my communication style so that they can understand me and what I'm trying to convey to them. And, you know, I think I spent 4 hours or something like that in this class. And that was the one gemstone out of that class that was just really rung true. So you really, as I go through and you learn the personalities of your team, and you figure out, okay, this is how this person likes it, and you kind of profile them on how they receive their information and how they transmit their information. And I've had to kind of adapt that a little bit, that if I'm not understanding my teammates or my program team, that I need to ask them to communicate to me in a certain way so I can understand it correctly. And that really has reduced the miscommunication. I know everyone says, go back to what I think I heard you say, and you could do that all day long. And you're going to be doing that all day long. But if you ask people up front to tell you, please just give me straight facts, don't get a lot of any personality in there. Don't complain about people. Just tell me what the problem is. Then things go fine. And even the people that are on the phone that they may be complaining about, it gets boiled down and the personality gets taken out of it to the problem. And then as a team, we can attack it. So, that's just something that's always stuck with me. And I share that with my, with younger PMs to kind of help them along the road to do that in the company I'm in now. So, because they're young and they just don't have the experience that I have. And at this point in my career, it's me to be more of a mentor to them than, tell them what you did wrong. It's like, how do we look at this situation and find a different solution, and what could you have done differently to get a different outcome? And and pose the questions in a positive way, instead of, you really screwed pooch on this one and you should have done this. Well, I didn't help them come to a decision-making process for the future. And that's, I always kind of look at this, that's always the goal of a PM, is to kind of educate the team on how the best situation to look at it and look at the bright side, but understand the negative side as well. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox and give the meeting back to you.
Well, I appreciate the sharing. Don't feel that way because this is really an open forum, not just me sharing. I really love the interactive mode of a workshop because that way we get to learn from each other, your organization, your personality, even in your personal project, right? So I do really appreciate what Ed just shared because as a project manager, we also have a role in develop our team member, right? We want to have an open communication like what you just said, we can't change anyone's else personality or communication style. We better off just change ours or adapt to others, and that way we can have a easy, not easy, but a better way in communicating and understanding our team members. And I really appreciate that sharing, Ed. And anyone else would like to share? Feel free. Make it like a workshop. We don't have much this kind of workshop. Um, Allow us to share about communication as a project manager. Michael, Jacqueline, Stephanie, Cleber, Leslie.
Okay.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. I liked what Ed had to say. I do agree that as PMs, it is to our benefit to be effective communicators and to at least understand how other people receive their communications, their messages, and to adapt to being able to make sure that everyone can gather the information. I don't like to be redundant, but I find that in the Zoom meetings that I've had with team members, saying the same thing differently at times helps to bring on more discussion and more understanding of what the topic is being discussed. We talked about meetings, and I usually do have an agenda for meetings and very specific items relevant to the project. I like to move away from a lot of detail in a meeting and to sideline that between the people who want to hear all the details, recognizing that you have your sapphire person who really doesn't want to delve into the details, which is okay. Just recognizing that and just making sure that everybody can get what they need out of a meeting and walk away with information to do their work, I think is always key in my mind of being able to communicate. And obviously a meeting is one way to do it. And sometimes having one-on-one conversations after a meeting can help clarify any misunderstandings or to ensure that there were no misunderstandings. That's my take.
Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. And it does reminding us that when we have our meeting with team meeting, sometimes things can be taken offline. Absolutely, we should, because just like what you said, we wanted to respect everybody's time as well, especially when we got all the distraction from meetings, after meetings and between meetings and even at the same meeting. So definitely wanted to respect the team members, even ourselves, we respect our time, most importantly as well, in a way how we communicate our project communication to others. Thank you again, Stephanie, for sharing that. That's a very good reminder. And is there anyone else who would like to share? All right. No one. Well, let's give it a moment that what have you, after these two sessions, I would really like to hear your honest feedback, right? How can we do better in order for us to help others? After learning from risk management from Cleber and even from myself, just sharing the personality type and types of communications that is playing such a key role in our project career. Anyone would like to share? your takeaways maybe, and how can we take on, how has it helped you today, and you can, take on maybe to help your team, or even for us to help more others to get this concept going, this kind of workshop. Your feedback is very much appreciated. No, nothing to improve.
All right, I'll give you some. So, I mean, I come into the meetings and I'm a member of both the LA and the Inland Empire chapters. And I come into meetings with really no clear direction other than what the summary is. And I think it would be good to have, say, the 5 things you're going to walk out of the meeting with, up front. Or if you're or pose it a different way of, if you're having this type of problem, this is the workshop for you, or the seminar for you, and maybe, and then as the presenters is, what do you want, at the beginning of it, what do you want out of this, right? And then, I know a lot of this is a little bit scripted, and I get it, but then at least maybe they could be slightly tailored to the folks who are saying, okay, I want to get, A and B out of this webinar, and maybe it's off course or maybe it's not, but at least then coming out of it, it's like, okay, as a participant, you're going, okay, well, they're not going to satisfy my A question because it's off topic, but I'm going to get my B question answered, and they know that up front, and it could help engage more of the participants in that. I know I did a lot of leadership courses with a volunteer organization, and I sent them a 20 questionnaire before my course, and so they filled out those questions, and most of them gave them back to me, and they didn't have to, which was really kind of nice because I got a lot of insight on who they were. But it set them up to ask lots of questions about and about themselves and what they think they're going to learn out of the course. And so it made it really engaging. At the end of the workshop, or the course, I should say, most of the people that came in, it was about 37 people that finished the course. That most of them walked away in tears and lifelong friends with somebody, and that's great. And that was mine. That was in 2017, and they're still contacting each other and myself 4 years later. And so we grew those bonds, and so I think that may help open up the conversation a little bit more. As you can see, I don't have a problem with that.
That's great. Really good feedback. I appreciate that. Yeah, and maybe we talk offline on some other upcoming initiative if you are interested.
Okay, just reach out to me.
Yeah. Anyone else? Would love to hear your feedback and what can we.
Yeah, this is Lee, and one of the things that I appreciate in a webinar like this is when there are examples that are used of actual situations that have occurred, where the person can relate how they dealt with it, then how they might have dealt with it differently, but then open it up to the participants in the webinar to say, what sort of thoughts do you have? Have you had a similar experience? And literally kind of creating that bonding experience with the fact that we all have these experiences, and what are different ways to, to, once again, I'll use the word mitigate them, and to deal with them up front, so just kind of a thought.
Thank you, Lee. And I love that part too, to being able to learn from the participants and communicate in that way. Thank you for that. Anyone that actually motivate the workshops that we have been doing. I wanted to open up to the participant, because we all are project managers. We all have experience and we learn from each other. Anyone else? I want to be respectful to your time as well. Before we wrap the meetings. Any sharing, any thoughts? or maybe you don't like the webinar at all, I should just close shop. Well, feel free to express. No, I bet you like it very much. and okay, so let's so I don't see anyone raising a hand. Okay, so let me share the screen again so that we get the PDU code. You can absolutely screenshot it. Oh, where's my PowerPoint? Okay, I got one more slide. So I love to learn from, I always use Confucius sentence proverbs that actually helped me a lot in all the ways in my career, in my personal life, that he said, tell me and I will forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I will learn. So of all of these techniques, tools and resources that we all learn, even together, we learn from each other. And how we actually applying it, how do you use, my question to you, will you use the GEM types or GEM personality type to even to your close one, to your friends, to kind of identify what kind of personality he or she might have, and how you will have a better communications or gaining, building better rapport with the person, whether it's a personal or professional life. How do you connect with them in a way that, for example, Pearl likes to be connected, but only if you gain their trust. I'm very much a Pearl, and I also demonstrated some Emerald and some Ruby, depends on situation, right? Not really a Sapphire. It would be very hard for me to be a Sapphire. So how do you actually utilize the different personality type, even though maybe you are more familiar with the DISC or Myers-Briggs type, that will be very good in terms of building up the team, forming or developing a team. How do you understand even your stakeholders, your boss, your superior, kind of the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis. So I would like to thank you in advance for all of you spending your Saturday morning with us today. And I will be sending you the recording. And also, because this is the final workshop that we have for this series, and if you would like to have the past recording, which is the past 2 sessions, you can definitely email me at this empoweredtotransition@gmail.com. I will send to you. Otherwise, I will send you only this today's workshop. We just had our Q&A, and this is the PDU that you would definitely want to screen capture it for self-reporting PDU. And officially, I would like to thank PMI LA has been such a great event partner with us. Check out pmi-la.org. Often they have wonderful events for leadership, for technical developments, and even for the PMI Triangle, business and strategic, PDU driven. So did you manage to screen capture already? Otherwise, I will still send you the code in my thank you email as well, coming with the recording. All right. Anyone have any final words before we wrap up the meeting? No? You good? All right. And once again, thank you so much for your time
Just a
today.
moment.
Oh, go ahead, Stephanie.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the information on how to request the PDUs.
Oh,
I didn't see it.
okay. You can let me share the screen again. Oh, why don't I do this? I will send you an email after this, all of you who attended today, for the PDU code and the replay of today's session. And also I will include, I mean, in the same email, you can reply to me if you would like to have the past recording of 2 other workshops, which is equivalent to 6 PDU if you watch the replay. something that I thought it's beneficial to the group as well. I mean, why not? So I would do that if you reply to me, if you want that. Other than that, anything else? Am I missing? No? All right, thank you so much, everyone. And I really appreciate you spending this Saturday sharing with us. And I appreciate your feedback, your honesty, and all of your time. Thank you. And great knowing you.
Thank you to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend.
You too.
Thank you.